Thanks to everybody for tuning in, though. We'll be hanging out for about an hour here, chatting with Brandon, and we've also got Harvey, aka Aura Shred, joining here in a few minutes. All right, I think we'll go ahead and start. So, yeah, we've got the brand new album, Graphite, out now. It's been out for a few days, and this is the third album that Brandon has done with FiXT, and I think it's been the most successful launch we've had yet. Man, some stats that I wrote down. You know, you're right at 135,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, which is a new record. And this release has had official playlist support from Spotify, Apple, Deezer, Amazon, Yandex. So, and this is truly hitting a global fan base.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And I don't know how on earth it happened. This is like the fourth album, I think, if you count Order Disorder.
Yeah.
In like 2 years. When did we start?
Yep.
2018.
Yeah, spring of 2018.
Yeah, it's no idea how that happened. But
yeah, you're a machine. That's how that happened.
Hit a streak of luck, and it was crazy because when I finished the Ephemeral album on Cleopatra, that album was out, and then you heard the single, and right around the time that you heard it and you contacted me is kind of when I didn't know what I was going to do. If I was going to, like, I kind of lost motivation. I didn't see progress happening. I really hated social media. I'm still not a huge fan of it just because I don't to brag and, like, you know, show off and post photos of yourself. But I think I just understand and I like the branding element a lot more now. But yeah, it's just, you never know what could create the spark inside you to keep going. And it was the email or however you reached out to me, phone call or something like that. And just after that phone call, we kind of brainstormed and hit it off about what would make a cool sounding album that would fit on FiXT. And just like immediately after that, it was like the fire went back on inside, and it was just a constant stream of ideas.
Yeah, I don't think you've stopped for those 2 years. It's been pretty much steady.
Yeah, because before that I was putting out an album every several years. But I think also back then I put an album out and then we would tour on that album, and you would just get so burned out and like beat down and disappointed that when you came back from that, you kind of just you didn't want to do anything. So the method that I think we've done here, where it's kind of like a virtual entity, has really worked for me personally. So I mean, I definitely miss the live aspect of it, of doing shows, but I think we can get creative around that and figure out new ways to do it and to engage that aspect of it. So
yeah, I think what we're doing here, broadcasting with fans and engaging in a video method, is going to be something we can open up even further. And we're looking into like doing little shows or online performances. Like, can we hook things and broadcast in that way?
That's what I was talking about with my brother and the guys. Next, the thing I want to do next is, rather than jump right in and start like a new batch of songs, is to record a few of these live, like find a cool place to do it. So kind of like how you'd see on one of the late night shows, like Saturday Night Live or, one of those things, that kind of feel and look and sound, and just maybe like 5 songs and try that. So.
Yeah, that'd be super exciting. The album just came out. The music video for Die With You has got a pretty amazing response. We've got with the album out now, kind of the alt version of the song Die Without You. I don't know if you've had much interaction with people on that, but now that people have really seen the video, I'm excited to kind of see how people dig into the final track on the album.
Yeah, I think that's the least streamed song on the album, which is what I expected anyways. But I made it because there was so much like string element that was buried in the original mix with like all of the synths and guitars and loud drums that I muted all that just to hear how it sounded, and it was kind of cool. So that was kind of the whole idea behind it, is just a more tamed out, mellow version. And I've gotten, some people have written me messages and they really liked it. So I mean, who knows?
Cool. I've got one more question, and then we'll jump into some stuff with Harvey here on the Illusion of Control track. But you mentioned people messaging you, and I know on your Instagram stories a lot of times you'll post different messages fans send in. But what's the experience been like just seeing the fan responses on socials, whether it's a comment or if people are messaging you? What's that like?
This has been the most, I think, the most people reaching out to let me know what they think of the album compared to all the other ones previously. And you never really know, because I release so many singles, and then once it's time for the album, still going to be excitement for the last like 5 songs that people haven't heard. So I think it was really eye-opening and really cool to see that people were still excited, even though they've heard the first 5 singles or whatever. The songs as a group, there was still excitement around that. And man, I've gotten some really deep messages, some like stuff that I'll never forget, like some really good ones. Like I wish I could find a good way to save all these and like catalog them, because they're really motivating to read these things. And like even one guy reached out and he said something like, back in like 2005, we were on the message boards and I was talking shit about you and I was saying you're a wannabe orgy and or whatever, something like that. He's like, I don't know if you remember me, but I just wanted to say now, after hearing the new album, I really regret saying all that stuff. So hopefully you forgive me, and just we can leave it at that. I don't remember that conversation. I know there was a lot of shit talking back then on message boards, like before. This is like around MySpace era, slightly before. But I mean, I don't hold grudges. It takes too much energy to retain holding on to a grudge. So, as long as you're cool now, that's what matters to me.
Yeah. So, you get a lot of positive fan feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking about people, on message boards in years back, but, with all the positive response, is there ever a negative response that gets to you, or are you able to pretty much rise above that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have been surprised that there hasn't been more trolling, especially on the more anonymous sites like YouTube, where you can't just click on someone's profile and see who they are. Really surprised at that. But I think the negativity, more of that comes from like friends not telling me about, they did a great job on the album, or this song, I like this song. That's kind of where I get most of the negativity of. It's this expectation that I build up inside that because they're a friend, maybe they'll just listen to my stuff just to see, what is my friend up to? So I think it's setting that wrong expectation. And I think that happens to a lot of people, not just music. Whatever you're in, you want your friends to be interested and to think you're doing something cool. So, and you also don't want to be pushing it on them. So it's this weird thing where you hope that they discover it and they think it's cool. But I would say my personal friends, they don't really even like or listen to my stuff. So any kind of positive like reinforcement I get or reaction is always from the fans. So that's why the fans are so important, because that's really the only positive response I get. I don't get it from the core people that I interact with, like in real life. So that was always something I really had a problem with early on, is, if you're in a relationship and the person you're with doesn't have any interest in hearing what you've been doing, or, if you're a photographer and your, girlfriend or husband doesn't want to see these pictures you've spent so much time working on, that's pretty, that's self-destructive, and it's hard to figure out a way to satisfy yourself without the need of getting other people to create that satisfaction for you. So like I started developing that like barricade a while back, a few years ago, where I can just create stuff and put it out, and I'm not looking for the response from my close family or friends or whatever to reinforce and tell me I'm doing something good. And I think for new artists, it's really hard, because when you don't know what you're doing, like I had no idea what I was doing for a long time. So you're looking for people that, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And so you can keep doing that. But like looking back now, I think what's cooler than anything is if you don't look for any positive reinforcement, you just do exactly what you want to do, for better or for worse. Even if the recording sounds like shit, if it's your straight vision, your uninterrupted vision, I think that's the coolest thing. If you can do something unique, and you know, if you're playing guitar and you record it wrong, but it's you and it sounds unique and that's your thing, I'd much rather hear that than some professional sounding generic, you know, song.
Well, speaking of, you know, production and working on things, you're primarily a solo artist, but you have a collab on this album, and so we want to bring on Harvey, or a Shred, who's coming in from France, and yeah, I want to let you guys talk a little bit about what it was like doing a collab, and you know, you being in Southern California and Harvey being in France.
Yeah. Hey, Harvey, are you there?
Guys.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know it's very early in the morning for you over there.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know, I've had some fans reaching out that they're fans of you now, so I thought it was cool for them to get to see you. And maybe you can just tell us how, I think you reached out to me for a remix originally. Yeah. So how did you even know who I was? How did that happen?
I didn't know who you were. It's just you did a remix for one of my band, Porn. You did a remix for us. And at that time, I didn't know about the Anix. And when I heard that remix, I was instantly catched by your style and some of the influences that match my own style. And at that time, I was searching for someone to remix Finally Free, my song Finally Free. And I instantly thought, I have to contact this guy. I have to reach this guy, because this is a great match to this song. I was sure that you were a great match for this song. So I reached to you, and heard the song, and you were okay to remix it. That's how it started between us.
Yeah, and I remember when I did the remix, I didn't make any effort to make the remix sound different than my stuff. I treated it like I'm making a song as the Anix. And like when it was done, I'm like, damn it, I wish this was my song. I really liked what came out of it. But that's how I became familiar with your work, is through the remix, and I listened to your other songs. And there's this, I think American producers romanticize the French producer, because you guys have a different, you know, people in different regions of the world have different writing patterns and styles and the way that they tune the sounds. And there's something specifically that I've found from French producers, and there's Norwegian producers where I like certain things, and from Denmark or whatever, but specifically the way you did your synthesizers and the bass and some of the drum work, that's what really stood out. I'm like, damn, it's some tasteful shit that's hard to replicate. So when I was doing one of the final songs on my album, Illusion of Control, I knew that I heard something in my head that was specifically in this French realm of sound that I associate certain things with. And you were the first person that I reached out to. I sent you the track. And I really didn't give you a lot of direction. I think I just said, here it is. You know, what do you have in mind? And then that was it. I chose you because I knew I liked your stuff. So I didn't want to control too much of that. I wanted you to just do it on your own. So yeah. That was it. And I think you also did drum elements. So you did what were the parts you did in the song? It was, I know, some lead.
I just brought 2, maybe 3 synthesizers, main melodic synthesizers, and just 1 or 2 rhythm or drums gimmick, but that's it. The song was already here, and it was very easy for me to choose the synthesizer, because I think you, the reason you said you choose me for this song is what made it easy for me. When I heard the song, I said to myself, yeah, I just have to use that synthesizer and this one, and I was pretty sure that you would enjoy it or like it. So I just, the one you call the crying synth.
Yeah, those are always the hardest ones, but the best when you finally get it are those like crying synthesizer that sounds like it's actually crying and devastated. So yeah, I think you did an awesome job on that, man. So what's next for you guys?
I was saying to you 2 days ago that I have 2 albums on the run. The first one is some kind of cinematic, futuristic-like album. It's an album that I want to make to help myself to get a bit more free and help me progress in production before getting on another song-based album. So these are my goals for the end of 2020 and 2021. So 2 albums are going on.
Awesome. And I know I have a remix also for Porn coming out, your other band. Yeah. I think that's middle of July or somewhere around there. So yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, I think well, whenever I start writing the next batch of songs again, I'd love to have more of you on it. So yeah, keep in touch.
Yeah, that would really be cool. And yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome, man. Well, go to sleep. I know it's too late over there.
Yeah,
and
it's 1 p.m. in France, but I really wanted to be here with you guys. So thank you very much for having me. And I'll watch the whole thing with the replays. And here it is. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thanks, Harvey.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, man.
We'll share the Porn remix when that comes out in a few weeks, and make sure all of the Anix's fans can grab that.
And now some remix.
Yeah, just to kind of wrap up the experience working with him remotely, was there anything in that process just about being in 2 different parts of the world and how that was able to be facilitated?
It's just so easy now. It's I mean, technology is awesome. You can do so much, even if what wasn't possible like 7 years ago, or even 5 years for the most part, like trading full sessions, instantly. So it's just a cool time to be a musician, and you can meet. I mean, most of the people I interact with are literally from the entire planet. It's every country. So there's such cool opportunity to bring people in and get other influences or other takes, even if it's little details. So I just think it's really cool.
Well, let's switch here to some fan questions. And we had a few come in ahead of time via email or the FiXT Discord that for people that couldn't be here or may not be here. But this is from Steven. Are your guitar tracks using virtual amps or physical, and which ones?
Both, actually. So generally this like clean, slightly distorted, but clean single note sound is usually a live amp. I have a Fender Blues Junior, and then Fender Twin Reverbs, like a lot of the classic sounding amps. I like that for a clean sound. On some of the songs where it's really guitar driven and really like heavy chords, There's some orange amps we've used, but I always combine those with virtual amps, like Guitar Rig Pro.
Layering?
Yeah, layering. I like the like to record feedback and get like a roughness and hear the guitar jack plugging in. Like I like all those noises that people would normally delete and try to get rid of, but I want all that sound, or like the buzz from a guitar when there's fluorescent lights on.
Yeah.
Those are all the reasons why I like real amps, is to make it sound like you're in the room with the person. Because I think with virtual stuff, it's too easy to get things too perfect. And when you're doing electronic music, that's I think what gives electronic music a bad name a lot of times. It just sounds too robotic and too programmed and perfect. There's no human element to it. So definitely trying to capture the mistakes and the errors and the out of tune stuff. Yeah.
So this next question comes from Chris. You make common use of syncopation in your compositions, often in multi-layered form, which intrinsically adds excitement and depth to the overall soundscape. Is this a conscious choice, or does this structure appear instinctively within your songwriting process?
I think those might be referring to like arpeggiated synthesizers, like when the synthesizer is doing this big run of notes, like repeating these patterns of like huge runs. So whenever when I get to the chorus of the song, usually that's when I try to fill up the entire spectrum of sound. So all the bass, the entire bass spectrum, from the kick, then a synthesizer bass, and then a bass guitar, a live bass fills a different region of the sound spectrum. And then guitars kind of fill out the mid-range. And then usually on the guitar, I'll do single note picking. I won't do chords. So that leaves a lot of vacancy for the atmosphere sound. And that's where doing like 3-note chords through an arpeggiator on a synthesizer really fills that up. And the end result is you just get this massive, wide, completely full and maxed out sonic landscape, because you have the entire thing filled up with all that. So if you were to contrast that with like a traditional country band that doesn't have synthesizers and it's very traditional, there's a lot of holes in the mix in that sonic landscape of air. And some people want to hear that. They want that dynamic. But for me, on the choruses, it's supposed to sound like there's 50,000 guitars and just an army of instruments happening at once. So yeah, I use arpeggiators all the time, but just because I really like how they sound, and it's just, yeah.
The next one from Jason. Hey, Brandon, was wondering if you could talk about the process of turning the vocal album to an instrumental one. Is it as easy as dropping out the vocals, or is there more to the process than that? So I think just the instrumental versions.
Yeah, on all of mine, I've just dropped the vocal and I just remastered it. That's it. I don't think any of them I've changed or had to change anything. It's just pretty straightforward.
This one's from Anonymous. Will there be new merch now that the album is out? And will the driver tech jacket be restocked in the future? Which we did add 1 or 2 that we had extra on the store. I don't know if they've already sold, but there was a couple that just added.
Yeah, no plans to restock the jacket, but I do have a new shirt in mind. So the album art for the song "Give It Up," it had this like silhouette of somebody floating and like a kind of holographic color around it. Thinking about turning that into a shirt. So maybe 1 or 2 shirts to support this release, and then move on to something later.
Okay, this is another one that's anonymous. Will you continue the Decode series you started on YouTube? It's really interesting to see your approach to the music making and thoughts on industry itself.
Yeah, I definitely want to do more with that. When I did the first one, I wasn't at the time planning on doing a music video. And I think it was before all the COVID-19 stuff. So when I was going to do more of it, I had the idea to do what I thought would be more valuable, which is the video for Die With You. And that kind of took place. And then after that, it was all the album promo and merchandise. So it just totally vaporized all my time, but I definitely want to get back to more of that for sure.
Micaiah asks, Brandon, what was your main inspiration for the song Graphite as well as the album as a whole?
Graphite was specifically kind of like 80s goth industrial dance music, but more in the realm of like Depeche Mode, like that kind of 80s goth, and like some of the early Cure stuff, the early Nine Inch Nails stuff. So I really wanted, Nine Inch Nails does this thing where the verses on some of their songs are almost painful to get through. Like they're really challenging melodies and they're abrasive sounding, and just the production sounds really violent. And then once the chorus hits, it like feels like a warm blanket wrapping around you, because it's the contrast of going from this challenging, difficult, almost ugly sounding verse, and then the chorus just sounds, that contrast is kind of what I was trying to go for on this one. So yeah, definitely like 80s Nine Inch Nails is it probably, and Depeche Mode.
Those moments where you get the resolve after some dissonance. I love
exactly.
That. Yeah.
And then like the album as a whole, you know, when you see websites review the album, it doesn't matter what you do, they generally don't like it. But the criticism always is, it sounds the same, you know, 5 songs in and it's the same formula. Well, yeah, no shit. That's what I sound like. Of course it's all going to sound the same, and that's on purpose. I don't want one song to be a country song and the next one to be a, you know, house song or whatever. So on this one, I just really wanted to capture the main 3 influences I have, which is like grunge alternative, and then that like dark electronic stuff, and then the combination of the 2 of those, like the hybrid, like futuristic alternative rock thing. So I think it's just going back and forth between those, and it makes the album sound, you know, different altogether.
So I'll throw in a question from my end. You've recently described the album as anti-pop electro. Is there some inspiration for that phrase?
I think it's just because I have no clue what's happening in modern music at all. I don't listen, you know, it's not something to brag about, but I just don't listen really to music a lot in general. Mainly listening to like podcasts and things like that, but that's kind of what it is. And it's, aside from the sound of pop music, it's not that I have a problem with. It's the production, the machine that's behind creating a pop star, like that whole thing. And I know that world very well because I was hired by record labels early on to play guitar for some of these pop artists. So I saw behind the scenes, you know, they take somebody that, if you look good and you have a classically good sounding voice, not a unique voice, just a good, what people generally refer to as a good voice, like on American Idol, that kind of voice. That's really all you need. And then they're handed all the melodies to the songs, the lyrics, they're handed the production team, they're handed the best studios in the world, they're handed the band, the live band, which is what I was part of. They're handed the wardrobe, the looks, the managers, the lawyers, all of it's just done. And it's just so enraging to see some of those people that don't appreciate it. And, you know, then the rest of the world, the way that we have to go about it is you have to do all of that stuff on your own. So that's the anti-pop thing, is that this is entirely like just done with us, and without, you know, the huge machine controlling everything and telling you what to do. So, yeah.
So here's from Nicholas. I love the featured artist tracks on Graphite with Aura Shred and GXG. Is there a chance we could get a remix album with takes of the material from other artists?
It's a good idea. Never thought of that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge is I just dread making stems so much. That's one of my least favorite things on the planet, but that's a cool idea. I would definitely wouldn't be opposed to that.
Here's another one from Ryan. Congrats on the release. I recall on Instagram you teased a song that was similar in vibe to Hologram's Interference. Is this track on Graphite? You know what track you might be referring to?
Not sure. It might have been a version of Die With You without the guitars in it, because that is a pretty kind of a similar vibe. I don't know, not sure. There's a couple songs I never released too. So.
Is that one of your puppies in the background?
Can you hear him? I might need to bring him up. Let me bring him up real quick so he stops.
Okay. And we get the
visitor.
So who is this?
This is Echo.
Echo.
He's an Italian Greyhound, 5 months old.
Super cute.
A lot of work.
A lot of energy.
Oh my God, unbelievable. Super worth it.
And do you have other dogs or just this one?
Yeah, we have his brother down there, Tintin. He's 7 years old. So
cool.
All right.
So I think you answered a question similar to this last time, but for anyone who missed it, Michelle asked, how many shoes do you have?
Man, probably about 30 pairs, which is for like some of the like the sneakerheads or whatever have, hundreds of shoes. There's not a lot of shoes that I like, but the ones that I do, obviously I like them enough to stare at them every day.
Yeah.
So, I'll show you some of my favorite ones.
And are you more in favor of high top?
I definitely like a high top, even though they're more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But this is one of my favorite ones just because it's completely waterproof. And then of course the color is just, it's right up my alley. Super comfortable, super flexible. And then this is the one that I actually painted the toe with that pattern on it.
Oh, cool.
So this was an acronym, Nike Presto, added this like triangle thing on the back. But again, it's just anything that resembles Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, Darth Vader, that whole world, that's usually an easy win for me.
And brand-wise, it looks like it's majority Nike. Is there anything that's not Nike in your collection?
I like Doc Martens too. I like Converse, Vans. I like, but as far as like the athletic shoe, it's generally Nike. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we've got another anonymous question. As a producer, what do you think about field recordings? Have you thought about using them in your songs?
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're talking about going out like in the open and recording samples and things like that. I've done some of that early on, and I stopped doing it just because I felt like I was the only one on the planet that would pick out those sounds and notice it. So I was mainly doing it just to make me feel like I'm doing something unique and different. But I mean, I don't think anyone would ever pick those out. So I still have a whole arsenal of sounds I've made myself, like using forks and knives and metal and hammers and all kinds of stuff like that, that I use. But I just haven't done that stuff for the most part lately.
This one is from Matt. Where did you learn to make music?
Entirely just self-taught. I think for certain things you have to be so into it that you'll teach yourself no matter what the cost. You become so obsessed with it that there's nothing that'll stop you from learning it. And if you think of like soldiers in the army, they're given a gun and they're trained to take that gun apart and assemble it in pitch black or like underwater or like that kind of thing. And that's how I was with a guitar. Like when I was handed a guitar, when I got my first one, like I would sleep with a guitar. It would be in the bed next to me, is constantly wherever I was. And even on tour, like that was like my thing that I had a connection with, is this, musical instrument. So I think you have to form that bond. And, it's the same with a horseback rider. They have to form the bond, or a race car driver, form the bond with the car, a photographer, the camera. Like you want to know every single millimeter of what that camera can do and how to control everything. So I think, it's much easier now because you have the internet to ask questions and see tutorial videos on YouTube. But when I was starting, it was at the is actually before the internet really, or like right when it was starting, and there was really no help. So you just had to figure things out. And I think when you learn things on your own without somebody telling you, you also learn the wrong way to do it. But in the wrong way is where a lot of the coolest stuff happens. So if let's say you took a class on music production, they're only going to teach you from point A to point B the proper way to get from point A to point B. But it's in the in-between, in those outer edges of doing things wrong, that's always, in my opinion, where the coolest stuff happens for all of the arts, not just music, anything, fashion, photography, graphics, whatever it is, it's always the coolest stuff. So I guess my recommendation would be try to learn it without tutorials, and try to, don't try to do things wrong, but you naturally will. And then that's when you'll discover possibly something no one else has ever done.
Here's one from Christina. Is there a different genre of music that you are wanting to try out?
Yeah, so I'm tempted on, we've had the conversation before, this like, I can't remember what we were calling it, goth wave or something. And it's kind of like Joy Division, New Order kind of vibe. So if you think of synthwave, but having that like New Order, Joy Division guitar added to it, something in the realm of that. So maybe, I was thinking about doing like an EP of that, or maybe just a couple songs as a package rather than like singles. But it's hard because the more songs I release, the more I understand what people want to hear from me. And doing something like that, I'm sure a lot of people won't be into it, but it could still be an interesting learning process.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Kale asks, if you could cover any song from any artist, what would it be? P.S. Love the album.
It's hard because my favorite songs are so good that covering them would just be an injustice to the song. So like anything Depeche Mode for me is off limits, because I don't see the point doing the cover because you can't do it better than the original. Unless you're radically changing. Here we go. Unless you're radically changing things. 9 Inch Nails is another one. I would love to cover them, but again, how are you going to possibly make one of those songs better? So with the song Burn.
Yep.
With the song Burn by The Cure, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. And that one, I just tried to keep it close to the original as more of a tribute. And the same with Digital Bath. That was like, rather than looking at it as a cover, I was treating it as a tribute to how much I love that song. And I felt like it'd be insulting if I tried to change what I consider a perfect song. So.
Yeah. Okay, the last one was basically, have you thought about doing video tutorials, doing making ofs, showing how you create some of your songs?
I have. The problem is usually when I get in the zone to make a song, it's like I go from zero, like sitting on the couch watching a TV or like walking the dog, to 1,000% in, I don't even know what world I'm in until the song's done. So the thought to add production outside of that, cameras and editing, it just totally seems impossible unless I had somebody here to help do it. So
yeah. Ricardo asks, more Emanuela collabs?
Well, she actually helps a lot more than just the collab thing. Her range of influence comes from a lot of like European techno and house, deep house tracks. But the more melodic stuff, not just like, pure drum, brain dead techno. So she has a different ear and melody set than what I would hear. So sometimes she'll hear things and she won't play it. She'll just come in and tell me the melody, and it'll kind of wake me up to something that wasn't there before. She's also really good with lyrics. Like usually when I get to the lyric part, that's my least favorite thing. I like finishing a song as a whole, and I like creating the melody. I just don't love, doing the whole lyric thing. So she's helped throughout a lot with that too. So it's been a good, collaboration effort, and definitely we'll do more, in the future.
Cool. So this comes from Josh, who happens to be a fellow artist on FiXT Neon from Young Medicine. He
What's up,
does a lot of
Josh?
he does a lot of the design work for Young Medicine. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
asked, I love how on point your visuals are across the board. Do you have a professional background in branding and design? It is all so concise but unique.
Well, like my background is just, I guess, yeah, I have had a lot of graphic design like jobs that I've done, and like marketing stuff. So you learn, like corporate identity, visual identity, brand guidelines, and you understand after a while why businesses do that, and they're so strict with it in the messaging. So after a while, I just started treating my stuff in the same way that like Apple would treat their visual identity, and you stick to something. So the goal is that anytime sees any part of any of you, they see the entire picture. So like the backdrop behind you now, the graphite, the graphite album art. The goal with that is that when somebody sees that, immediately they have an idea of what that album might sound like, what the person might look like, what the merchandise might look like, the vibe of the whole thing. Like that's the goal. So every little detail for me has to be is that important, and it's a lot to try to manage, but that's I guess why I like to do it, is because it's overlooked a lot of the times. Or some artists, they hire people out to do it, but I create so much of the stuff that I constantly need to keep on it. So it's just I like to just control it all and keep it authentic.
So another question, this is from Rud356, just a screen name. Hi, Brandon. I want to ask if we should yet await video for Graphite as a song. Just curious because we've seen some new visuals on Facebook the day or two before the release and still hoping to see more of it. So any other video content?
I think the video portion I put for Graphite is a teaser. Was just like random B-roll stuff that I had left over. Originally, I wanted to do the single video for Graphite, and then I just thought that song would be too polarizing for people, that it wouldn't be like as wide of a catch as Die With You. And just in general, Die With You is probably one of my top 3 songs I've ever done. So it was a little more appealing to put all the effort in for a video on that. And it is a unbelievable amount of work to do the video by yourself. So the thought of doing another one is, it's just such a monumental task. Like I see why people pay so much money to have videos made, because geez, it's bone crushing work, like soul destroying work, but it's awesome. With Die With You, people are actually watching it. So that makes it all worth it.
Yeah. And the song Die With You, that song didn't get a big official playlist ad, but in the past month has had as many streams as some of the songs that are on bigger official playlists. So it's really standing out as a standout track. Yeah,
it got like the organic reach without having Spotify push it on a big playlist. So again, that was really rewarding to see all that hard work pay off, and that people just naturally gravitated towards it.
Okay, there's quite a few more here to get to. We'll keep going. This is another shoe question. Have you customized any of your Converse, and can we see those? That's from Ariel.
I did a long time ago. It was I did one of the Anix logos kind of like on half of the shoe. I just don't know where it is, but that's a good. Converse is such an easy. Actually, I have a pair of Gore-Tex Converse where I just blacked out the toe. Let me see, it might be here. Yeah, it was a pretty minor modification, but it was just painting the toe cap that was white, black, and then doing like military spec laces. And I was going to black out the inner side of it, so when you look at it from the top, this would all be black, and this would have the Gore-Tex logo. But yeah, that's a good idea. I should do more Converse because that's an easy one. Easy to paint on the canvas.
Curtis from the FiXT team here. Besides the merch you make with FiXT, have you ever thought about starting your own clothing line?
It's hard because I'm only into like one or maybe like 5 different brands of clothing, and that stuff is done so well. It's there's just no way I could ever compete with that, and I'm so happy with the stuff that I have from them, like acronym stuff or Stone Island, that it satisfies that urge. Like I don't see their stuff and feel a need that I can do something better. Like I see the stuff and I'm like, wow, that's all I need. And I think until that happens, I won't really have that like burning desire that you would need to make your own line. But I am working on doing a version of a jacket that's complete 100% designed from ground up. Working with a guy named Matt, who's one of our fans, actually. He's a costume designer. So we're doing the prototype now. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah.
Awesome. Nicholas asked, hey, Brandon, just want to say Graphite is an amazing album. I've been listening to it pretty much nonstop since it's been out. But I was wondering, what vocal plugins do you use?
A lot of there really isn't a lot of effect aside from like the delay sound. So it's mainly just, I double the vocal most of the time, pretty much all the time. And I compress the hell out of it really hard. And I drop a lot of the low end out of it because I have a pretty soft, bassy voice. So I kill a lot of the low end and I boost the mid and the high range, double the vocal and ultra hard compression. And that's pretty much, that's the sound that I guess is consistent on all my stuff. Then I'll do like a tape delay on most of my, pretty much all the songs, like a dotted 16th delay. And for the most part, that's it. Vocoders I'll do every once in a while. Yeah, Vocal Synth 2, that's another one. Clayton and I use that. So I'll use that on some of the parts, but it's not like a big feature you would notice. It's kind of more in the background stuff. But yeah, just pretty much doubling, super hard compression, kill the lows, boost the mid and high range.
Georgie asks, what makes Graphite sound different compared to hologram and shadow movement for you?
To me, when I think of all those 3 albums, they were all done in such a short period of time and kind of with the same mindset that it almost feels like a trilogy set. Because usually on previous albums, I would create the album, I would tour, play shows, and then it's back to the drawing board, completely try to start over. And with these albums, I felt like when Shadow Movement was done, I wasn't finished with what I had to say vocally and musically with that. So Hologram picked up and I continued what I was trying to go for, trying to achieve like the perfect balance of the electronics and the alternative rock side of it. And then once Hologram was done, I still felt like it was close, but it still didn't satisfy exactly what I was going for. It's like if I were to die today, would those albums say enough of what I was trying to accomplish as the Anix? And at the end of Hologram, the answer to that was no. At the end of this Graphite, I do feel like I've said what I set out to achieve like 20 years ago with this. So I think now that I have that sense of accomplishment of achieving the sound that I wanted, now maybe I can experiment in other territories.
Yeah. So there's quite a few questions related to one other topic that we haven't spent much time asking. And so rather than read every single one of these off, maybe we can cover it in a broader conversation about, there's a lot of people asking if you're going to tour, when or how would you tour, where would you tour? There's fans from Russia, Europe, US in here. So touring is definitely a conversation coming up in a bunch of the questions.
Yeah, we were talking with Julian K, Ryan Shuck and Amir from, those guys about touring with them. And my problem with live shows always has been, we didn't travel with our own production crew. So you just show up to the venue and you get some guy that's used to doing like punk rock shows. Then all of a sudden you show up with 50 keyboards and electronic drums and you sound nothing like yourself at the end result. So it's this constant source of frustration and like hatred towards the live atmosphere. So it's trying to figure out a foolproof way of doing that. And I think, you know, with going out with Julian K, if we did that, at least you're in that, we're all in the same universe of sound. So you can bring a sound guy to do both acts and kind of get it squared away. But the other confusing thing is, you know, some of the songs are like, would be a full rock band, and some of the songs are full electronic with no live elements at all, like the song Interference. It's pure electronic. So it's really hard to go back and forth and figure out a way to do those without totally changing the song. But that's the biggest source of confusion, is trying to figure out how to address that part of it. But yeah. I think touring wise, I'd rather do like festivals, like one-off festival shows, rather than the full-on grinding it out on a tour again, because I've done that and it's pretty bad. But yeah, festivals I'd be into.
Carrie's asking, Nick and Carrie, big fans from the Midwest, if they'll ever get a chance to meet you. There's also someone else asking, I think it was anonymous, asking if they're based in LA, could they ever have a chance to meet you? So I guess the question might be, would you ever be open to doing like a fan meet and greet in person somewhere if that was facilitated?
Yeah, I haven't even thought of that, but you know, Clayton's in LA now too, so maybe the two of us. Good Lord, maybe the two of us can do something. Maybe next time you come down, actually, we can do like a FiXT meet and greet thing. That'd be.
Yeah. I have had the concept for a year or so that on one of my trips out to LA, getting, you know, all the FiXT and FiXT Neon artists that are in the area together at a neutral venue, not a show, but to do a meet and greet and just set up, you know, chance for fans to come meet, get autographs, hang out a little bit. So I think we definitely need to make that happen.
Yeah, I would totally be into that. I think we should definitely let's do it.
Lita asks, are you planning to record another instrumental album like Order Disorder?
It depends. We'll see how this one goes. I know we landed that video game trailer, Everspace 2. That was awesome. That was motivating. Yeah. And then I know like ESPN has used a song, or Disney licensed it. So I think depending on how well it does, you know, yeah, I'd for sure be into it. Or doing like bespoke one-off projects, like songs and stuff.
Kimberly asks, what was the hardest song for you to complete on Graphite, and what made it difficult in comparison to the rest of the tracks?
I think the song, well, I had a big problem with If This World's With You. There's a few of the songs where the chorus could have gone, like I had, like on If This World Is With You, I had, I think, 5 different choruses that all sounded good. And so after a while, you just kind of, you're like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, it makes you just want to give up on the entire thing. So that was a real challenge, deciding which chorus to go with. And then the song Defender, the last, like one of the last singles to come out, that one I almost completely just scrapped and just started over. So I'm kind of glad I didn't, because that one started picking up traction. But I think that one, I was struggling with the production on it, and I kind of felt like it was too heavy. The intro thing was like too aggressive, and it didn't know if it fit with the rest of the stuff I was going for. So I almost rewrote the whole intro and made it more of like an alternative vibe, kind of like Renegade. But you know, I try not to overthink things. I know a lot of producers, they'll just overthink things and never release stuff. They have a whole catalog of material, hundreds of songs that'll never see the light of day because they can't just pull the trigger and finish it. So I try to put my money where my mouth is and just say, screw it, put it out and go on to the next thing.
Yeah, let the fans decide and see what rises to the top there.
Yeah.
So we have a handful left. We're just approaching an hour here, but we'll get through quite a few more here, I think. Okay, so this is an anonymous one, but as an artist, how important is social media to you, or maybe in general?
It's kind of confusing because I I know a lot of bands that they can go tour as a career, like a career touring band, but they have virtually no social media presence. Then I know bands that have a giant social media presence, but they have like no people listening to them on Spotify. So I think it's always a case by case scenario. And, one of my favorite artists, Gesaffelstein, I mean, he's massive and he chooses to really not do social media. And, I think the thing that I don't like about social media is it completely ruins the mystique of an artist. Like, I wouldn't want to see Daft Punk, showing pictures of their dog or like what they're cooking for dinner or whatever. And same with Gesaffelstein. I wouldn't want to see what his daily life is. I just want to picture him as the gloss black silhouette. And, Trent Reznor, another one, he kind of stays out of it. And so it's hard, but if you just choose to not do it, then you're missing out on a huge part of the motivation for me, which is interacting with the fans. So I'll give up the mystique or, whatever that is. And in exchange for getting the influence I need from the people listening to my music, because that's such a huge part of keeping me going.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Steven asks, will any of your FiXT releases become available on vinyl? I don't know how much we've discussed vinyl.
I know a lot of people keep asking that. If there's a way to do like short run vinyl, maybe we could do something like that. But
I think that's a longer term question of when. But I know on the FiXT side, we've been looking at doing like a vinyl every quarter from one of our artists on the roster, because it's fairly expensive to produce, but it's also expensive for fans. And so kind of spreading those out across our roster. So we've got more vinyl to plan. So that'd be a tough one to figure out which to do first. We've got 3 albums now.
I know.
This is another anonymous question, but they're asking what the album image, I think, from the cover of Graphite is supposed to be.
It's actually a chunk. It's like an X-ray of a graphite, like rock, basically, and just tons of manipulating and like hand drawing parts in like Photoshop and Illustrator and crushing it all together. So it was supposed to be like the anti-diamond. Diamonds get all the glory of being this beautiful thing, and they're bright and shiny, and that's the exact opposite of who I am as a person. So graphite's like the dark horse of that family. It's like the anti-diamond, and that's what my music is, and that's pretty much what everything about me is. So.
Hiyori asks, is there anything to tell about the Give It Up picture that you mentioned earlier? I mean, about the colors on the human figure. That was pretty unusual from previous track and album pictures that you've made.
I think a common theme in a lot of my songs is like this suicidal figure. And the Give It Up figure, it's like, it's this figure like floating up, like afterlife kind of thing. And the colors came from a VHS distortion that I like took a picture of on an old screen. So there was there was infinite numbers of the way the colors could have gone, and it just happened to like the way that one looked together. So yeah.
Robert asks, will you ever do a collaboration with your Echo?
I might as well sample him. He's got the loudest mic I've ever heard in my life. So maybe it could be on the snare drum or something where I need the volume.
Ryan asks, any chance of making another song using drum and bass? Parasite rules.
I definitely want to do more of that. I've been loved drum and bass since early 90s. That was like the first form of electronic music I really liked. So it's just hard to do it really well. So I think, Graham, GXG, and I have talked more about doing a deeper project in that realm. So yeah, definitely I would for sure be doing more of that.
John asks, do you still own your Lego sets and Star Wars action figures that you posted on Instagram a long time ago? What impact does pop culture such as Star Wars have on your music?
Well, let me answer that question. Let's see.
Are we getting a little bit of a tour here?
Here we go. So here's a couple guys on my desk, and then over this direction.
Yeah, there's more.
So you just have to you have to have inspiration kind of wherever possible. Like, hold on. One of the things I've said before is just if you're doing anything creative, trying to surround your space with where everything you can possibly touch, see, and feel is a source of inspiration. So all the way down to like a pair of scissors or a pencil that you use or the notepad you use, and certainly any kind of figurines or posters or art or gear, mechanical stuff, tables, furniture, rugs, all of that for me has to be part of the picture. So I could never go into like a like an old Western barn and write this kind of music. Like it all has, I'm such a product of the environment I'm in. So, you know, like Star Wars, it's ingrained in pretty much everyone that's into anything sci-fi or futuristic. There's elements of that, or 2001 Space Odyssey, Blade Runner, Alien, like all those things play a picture in what I do. So like the black and neon graphic behind you, you know, part of that came from being a fan of The Matrix and Alien, you know, using those colors. So yeah, it's massively important to me.
This is an anonymous one. Technology is utilized ever more in music creation and has led to a single person being able to set up a mini studio on a computer or play with the dark art of electronic music creation. What do you see as the next step change for music creation through technology?
You know, there's people doing crazy programming stuff, and that I'm not personally into that. I feel like I'm getting to a point where I like just everything usually goes back to Depeche Mode, like early 90s, late 80s era Depeche Mode for me. And that's like a simple song. I think the song itself, just having a good melody, a good sounding recording, it's going to be hard to beat that. You can do all the details and all this crazy programming synth stuff and writing code, lines of codes and modular stuff. But in the end, what's remembered is the melody, the lyrics, and that's pretty much it. So that's where more of my focus goes on, is just the actual crafting of the song and not trying to reinvent, you know, what a synthesizer should sound like. I'm plenty satisfied with the Moog stuff that I have. But again, like I said, most of what I'm into is rooted back to Nine Inch Nails, Depeche Mode, earlier stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Nicholas mentioned, since you're a fan of Gesaffelstein, would you pretty please do a track with Morris Black?
Oh yeah. Hey, I'm up for it. If anyone wants to make the intro.
Well, the rest of his comment is happy to connect you if that helps. So it sounds like we have somebody who might be able to connect us. So Nicholas, definitely DM me somewhere and let's chat.
Yeah, for sure.
Anonymous, concerning Star Wars, Empire or Republic Rebellion?
Empire.
Empire.
For sure.
All right. Anonymous, so the alien reference in Parasite lyrics was intentional? Question mark?
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
Chris asks, how has the move to FiXT influenced your songwriting and why, or has it?
It's yeah, it's kind of like what we were saying in the beginning, the motivation to do whatever you want. Some labels will try to steer you in a certain direction on what they think is going to sell and be popular. And I feel like with you guys, it's really been a wide open canvas. You know, we've seen the songs that perform better, they get the most traction with PR stuff. And that's one thing, but in general, it's been, I feel like I've had full creativity just wide open with you guys. So that's a huge benefit of being with a label that's open-minded and that just trusts in the artist. So, yeah.
Cool. Just a couple left, and then I've got a few other things that I wanted to ask you and wrap up with. But I know we did cover some of this last time, but Robert asked, how has all the crap going on in the world affected your music recently? Do you think any of it will have a lasting effect? So I imagine that, just the shutdowns and COVID stuff and
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously you're home a lot more, so you have more time to sit in the studio and do things. But I always use the studio as like a creative relief from like daily life. And now that my daily life is all here, then it's a little harder to get motivated to go up and start writing. But I think that's also because I've just been on such a wild, just crazy streak of writing constantly for the last few years that it's just nice to take a little breather right now, even though I'm sure there is a lot of inspiration given the state of the events in the world. But most of my songs, even before all this was happening, kind of referenced a lot of this type of stuff. So
another question from Akaya. This is a bit of a bigger question, but what is your approach to songwriting and just producing a track as a whole?
I usually start with sitting down at the computer and turning on like a piano sound or a string or a pad synthesizer. That way I can write a bass and a lead note all at once. And if I come up with some kind of thing that I like, I'll just record it. But I usually have a drum template up, just a generic thing, so I can get a tempo. And that's how it starts. It's usually starts the same way. Sometimes it'll start with a guitar riff, just sitting down, coursing around on the guitar. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah, just the hardest part is just getting in the studio and starting the session. If you can get in there and sit down and just start, usually 9 out of 10 times something will happen.
You just got to begin.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of wrapping things up, I think Echo's ready for us to wrap up here. I've been fortunate to work with quite a few artists here at FiXT, and I've really enjoyed the creative process, the back and forth of chatting with you and seeing your creative vision come to life, and really just trying to be there to support your vision. And like you were saying, you have a pretty wide path of where you're going, and we're there to support. One of the things that we hear sometimes from new artists that we're working with, or artists that we're not working with yet, is that there's a lot of bad experiences working with labels where they don't hear back, they can't ever get a hold of somebody, they turn in their album and they don't even know when it's coming out, and it just shows up. Without getting into any specifics, I know you've had some experiences in the past. What, from that side of things, communication or working with the team here, how have you felt about that process and how it contrasts what you've been through before?
I think one of the big things with you guys is amazing communication and just direct lines of communication at all times. Hold that thought. So, I mean, we text all the time, and, I could send Clayton songs and just to get his feedback or whatever if I need help with something. So I think it's just been a modern approach to being in a business relationship with someone. I think it's like rapid exchange of information, and anytime I ask you guys a question, you have an answer or you get the answer like immediately. There's no waiting, not a lot of waiting involved. And like other labels, I mean, Jesus, you send an email and maybe a month later you'll hear back, or everything is so strict and like business, old school business like. So yeah, FiXT has a really, really good approach to the way they interact with the artists. So a real modern like version of that.
Yeah, it's good to just even hear that feedback and have somebody verbalize that. So to us, it's just the way we do things. It's normal. Yeah. So we love getting to work with artists like you, and yeah, just being there to support you and see your vision come to life.
Awesome. Thank you.
And yeah, thanks to everybody who stopped in. We got through 40 or so questions there, and definitely follow the Anix and everything Brandon's doing on socials, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Keep up with everything he has coming. It sounds like there's going to be some maybe new experiments, new sounds, new projects, collabs,
Definitely.
remixes. We've got, I don't know that we've announced this, but in the next month or so, there's a new remix from Brandon for Circle of Dust. So we've got his second remix for Circle of Dust coming up. He remixed one of Clayton's 25th anniversary mixes from Circle of Dust, and then the porn remix that you have coming out from Harvey's project.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and more to be determined, and see where you go with things.
Yeah, I'm still excited, as I was when I first started making music, to start again, to start the next generation of songs or whatever I do next. So I think as long as I have the motivation and the excitement and it's fun to do, I'll keep doing it as long as I can do it. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And yeah, thanks again, guys, for being a huge part of all of this. This wouldn't exist without you guys.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who took time out of their day to come chat with us and hang for a bit.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to wrap up here, and we'll catch you guys all on socials.
Yeah, here's the naughty boy saying bye. All right, see you guys.
See you guys.